very pleased to say, the Department for International Trade is incredibly forward-leaning in providing the kind of support that you'll be looking for going forward, wherever you're looking to expand to in the world. We're a network of about 4,000 people globally. We have 177 offices in 108 countries. A new policy that this government has is to support businesses in the UK invest and expand overseas. And we've now got a range of products and services that we provide to any British business that's looking to set up and expand overseas. There's a mantra within the department that says that government should only do what only government should do. And wherever we can encourage the private sector to do things to support our prosperity, when we support British companies expanding and investing overseas, the type of support that we offer by market depends on the market conditions that you'll experience. Hopefully that will be no surprise to anyone. So if we're looking at the US, we help you make some of the networks that money can't buy. My message today is most of what you need, particularly if you're moving to the US, is available from the private sector. However, the UK government has a really determined focus to support your businesses as British businesses succeed when they expand and develop overseas. So I'll give you a website that I would encourage you all to visit. It's simply great.gov.uk. That's our platform to help British businesses export. Do sign up to great.gov.uk. Do come and speak to us at the Department for International Trade. We really want to support you in your expansion plans. One of the great things about working in the civil service is that everyone that works there genuinely wants to do the very best thing they can for the UK. So they will make every effort to support you to succeed in your business endeavours. And we will also continue to work hand in hand with excellent organisations like this one to make sure that we're bringing the very best of the private sector to serve you.
Not surprisingly, being a US bank, we get a lot of clients who come to us at an early stage, particularly for tech companies, really sometimes as soon as they start trading and saying, we're going overseas immediately, we're going to the US, we're going to Asia, we're going to Europe, how can you help us? And we spend an awful lot of time thinking about, well, what can we do? And a lot of it is about networking and building networks and leveraging our network to help those companies. I'm not really talking about the banking side, I'm talking about how do you recruit overseas? How do you decide if you're going into a market as massive as the US, where's the best place for you to be located? Where do you need to source talent? Does it have to be Silicon Valley if you're looking for a developer? Or actually, are there other tech hubs that are more relevant to your business or that can offer something else? So I guess in that respect, we're absolutely delighted to be here today and to have some fantastic founders and CEOs who have been on that international expansion journey and who are going to share those experiences and insights with you today.
The way we've done that is to create a workshop format which is quite different, I believe, to a lot of events and conferences. It's a workshop where organisations get personal, relevant, bespoke, one-to-one advice through a series of consultations with both government, trade advisors and commercial sector experts in different aspects of international trade. And it's a really good example, actually, I believe, of the government and private sector coming together to deliver real value. Importantly, we offer this service free of charge to delegates. So if you're a brand here tonight who's looking to expand internationally, this could be a great place, a single point of access for you to get relevant advice and guidance for your expansion plans.
I'm CEO of Talenza, which is a Internet of Things smart city company. But I'm not going to start there. I'm actually going to go back a little further than that. Around about the mid-noughties, I founded a company from my kitchen table to solve a particular problem about mobile phone coverage at home. I'm not going to go into the details of that. But building that business over a period of 9 years until exit, we sold that business to Cisco in 2013 for $310 million. So a hell of a journey, and international expansion absolutely key. Our biggest customer actually was SoftBank in Japan, but our most important for value customer was actually AT&T in the US. But the US was of the greatest importance. Why? Because ultimately, where do acquirers come from? Where's the axis here of where international business works? And we never thought ourselves as a UK company. We always thought ourselves as an international business. We may start with a UK market, but actually that's just a springboard into a much bigger play. So moving on from that into Talenza, I actually joined Talenza as the CEO around about 18 months ago, 18 months, 2 years. And at that point we were around about 30 people. We're now 110. Over the last 2 years we've grown 50% and then 90% in revenue over that time, and profitable as well. We've fortunately had Silicon Valley Bank behind us all the way, which is fantastic. I really can't sing their praises enough. It's been brilliant. They bailed us out in my previous company, Ubiquitous, as well, when the banks tried to pull the rug from under our feet. But as a business, and as far as what I have done to drive the adoption across the world, because when I first went into the business, we were very, very UK centric, and when you look at that, you say, right, well, that's a great model, but actually that can apply in many places. It's very cookie cutter. So there's a particular model which I always use. The first phase of that is business development. Sounds obvious, but the first phase is go to your market and go and discover what's there. Ian's been through a whole load of the key points there, which is find out what the market is. Is the regulatory environment right for your market? Have you got to do changes of design to your products to meet that market? Is the customer base, is it ready? Is the business case which you have, which you rely on, does it work for your customer base? Who are your customers? How do you get to them? Trade events, absolutely critical. Standards bodies, join those. The conferences, absolutely critical to find out who they are and then go and start to talk to them. And then at the same time, work out what your channel to market is going to be. Is it going to be through partnerships? Often you need to have partnerships, or in some places we may use agents. In the US, what we did after having explored the market for a year and a half, found a customer, engaged our first customer and started to do deliveries. We then put in a sales team into the country because we understood the market well enough to know that it was worth investing, and we put 5 people in the US. And that is an investment because it's initially the first year we've got relatively low revenues from that activity, but it's growing. The pipeline is growing, and we get earlier and earlier in the sales cycle. So we get into the point where we're influencing the tenders rather than just responding to tenders. That's absolutely critical. And going for the tenders that you know, going for the business that you know, or you're pretty certain you've got a good chance of winning, and not just a scattergun approach. So a very focused approach. Now we've done the same thing in South America. Go down there and look at the market, explore it, see if the market's there. We've got to a stage now where we're just getting our first customer, and we're going to open up an office down in South America. We've done it this last year in Australia, in New Zealand. Market actually was absolutely right for our product, so we actually ended up sending somebody from the UK to move down there and taking somebody on locally because we need to move fast on that particular market. Another market we're expanding, looking at the moment, is Japan. Japan has a unique regulatory environment, but again, look at that market, and we've actually employed a company which I've used before in my Ubiquitous days called Intralink. Brilliant company to go and explore and find out, is there an opportunity there? They'll go and interview customers, partners, for us the local city, find out whether there's a market, and then recommend an approach. Do we partner? Do we employ them to be our sales force? Do we take on somebody? And so each region that we go after has its unique marker, and we target particular markets in particular times. So we look at probably the most sales opportunity requests we get is from India. But when you look at the market for India, it's so scattered, and it's a very difficult market for us to address. There was a drive on always on price down. So actually, it doesn't matter that it might be a massive market. We're not going near it for now. Maybe in the future we will. China, difficult market to break. You can kill yourself on China because there's lots of promises, and it's a tricky one. You definitely need a local partner in China. But I come back to the US because the US really is such an important market. The DIT have been a great help for us actually internationally, which is really good because some of the predecessors to the DIT in various different wording combinations of things have ranged from useful to hopeless. And I'm pleased to say that DIT now actually have been really helpful for us in many markets. We go to conferences with them and on the stands, they do introductions for us. But when it comes to it, whichever market it is, it's all about networking. No surprises there. And even some of the less known thought about ones of this is about the branding and image and getting your name out there with the analyst community, both the trade analysts, which is the world you may work in, and the financial analysts, so they understand what it is, what impact that you may have on the markets which they are influencing. Then you get your name out there, and then when you go and have a conversation with your customers, they said, "Oh yeah, we know you, we've heard of you, and we know that customer, we've met that customer, we know that they use you and they really like you." At that point, word of mouth spreads, and you don't need to go and convince everybody that you're better than the local company. You can go out there and win. Another thing which we've done actually, which is kind of, I think, not so logical, but manufacturing, we were manufacturing because we do hardware, we're doing it in Malaysia. Actually, last year I moved it back to the UK because actually it's more economical for us to build in the UK than it is in Malaysia, which is great. That's the Sony factory in South Wales. Really good. Anyway, pitfalls. There are pitfalls for sure. One is don't expand too quickly. Don't expand your salespeople too quickly, because otherwise you'll take on 20 people and then at the end of the year you'll fire 19 of them because they were the wrong people. So it's a gradually building that. That's a few, yes, lost a few nights, sleepless nights on that one. But always found this formula works, and as you can see from our success the last couple of years, 50% and 90%, it's certainly going very well.
My name's Mark K. Smith. I normally put the K so I don't get confused with Mark E. Smith, the lead singer of The Fall. Yes, few of you remember that anymore, but he died recently. I was something of a fan. I'm not going to talk about what I do for a business. You can ask me that afterwards. What I am going to do, though, is tell you how to do this very badly and how to do it slightly better. Okay? So imagine, if you will, that song's actually from 1993, I think, so a little bit earlier. But imagine, if you will, a much younger version of me. Same hairline, same hair, slightly thinner. I'll be about 30, and I was part of the dot-com boom. Right, remember that? And so some idiot gave me vast amounts of money, and one of the things in the sort of tick box exercise that one did in those days is go west, young man, because you have to have an American office, right? Okay, so you've got a lot of money, you've got some nice cars, you drive to the airport, and I'll just go back one, I should have looked at that before, and you get in Concorde, all of this is true. You sit next to Norma Major, it's a very long journey. You arrive 4 hours earlier than you expect, you go to an Irish bar in New York, you decide you don't like New York because they're far too rude. You then get another plane, a much slower one, and you go to San Francisco, they're too polite. Okay, and then, much to your surprise, you go to the middle of America in a place called Austin, Texas. Okay, which is very nice. Okay, so I need you to sort of imagine why I made the decision to go to Austin, Texas, because it was quite odd. It could have been, I think the university there has some 80,000 people, about 25,000 sort of faculty and staff, and 50,000 students, a great sort of centre. The weather's interesting, it's reasonably warm, but it's not Houston. That's quite positive. It's quite an attractive place, actually. It's got a long row of pubs. And But honestly, the truth, I don't think any of my investors from that point are in the room. You could smoke in the bars. that was a winner for us. So my experience then, it went from bad to worse. Okay, what did we do wrong? We thought we could hire people really easily in America, right? Americans all come across as salespeople. Okay, so you meet an American, I meet an Englishman, an English woman. In a few questions, I can work out where they fit, sort of, where they fit in my ecosystem, the one I understand. With Americans, everyone's sales, right? I don't get it. So we just hired at random, largely. That didn't work out very well, so we thought we'd compound that by not really checking on them, and then sending loads of public school boys out there as well. They love the accents, right? They really love it. They do. They love the accent, but there's a reason that we play the villains, right? They like the accents, but they don't like doing business with us. Not so much, anyway. So that was terrible. We spent quite a lot of money because this is pre-cloud, right? So this is the best part of 20 years ago. So we needed for the business, I won't bore you with what I did with that business either. What we did required some hellish server infrastructure as well. So we spent quite a lot of money doing that. It's all awful, isn't it? It gets better, it gets better more recently. Okay, remember him? Because there really isn't a cloud, right? We didn't win any business, and we burnt lots of cash, and we left. Okay. This isn't the end of the presentation, right? Okay, right. So, I'm older and wiser. I had to sell the cars, and we went west again, and we learnt our lesson. Okay, there's lots of great things about going to the States, and the lessons we learnt were as follows. Do your homework, do your research, right? I won't tell you which MBA school that I support because you'll go and steal the students and they're all mine. And so I get rafts of students in that I often employ, and I set them to do unbelievably tedious research tasks, okay? I say, right, here's 10 territories we might open in. There are 3 things I need to know the answers to. I won't tell you what they are because it'll tell you what I do as a business. It's very dull, but I need those answers, and I've then got an equation that says that market's good, that market's bad. US came out on the top. Brazil came at the bottom. We did open in Brazil, but anyway, there we go, and we retreated, but much more rapidly, okay? Cloud is transformatory in a business such as mine, okay? It's simply a button press exercise, more or less, in order for us to make our service work anywhere in the world. We work in the UK, we work in mainland Europe, we work in the US, we work shortly in Canada as well. We don't stretch around the rest of the globe because you don't really understand it. We work with service providers like Twilio, so if you want to send messages, I'm starting to talk about what I do. If you want to send messages and phone calls, which is part of what we do, then if you're working with an incumbent US technology supplier and you're using them in the UK, then it's easy to use them in the US. That becomes very simple as well. The other thing I learnt, don't send the public school boys out there. You can do quite a lot of servicing of American clients from the UK. Sadly, with Concord not there, it takes ages to get there now. But nevertheless, we decided, and this is 18 months ago, that we would win a proof of concept first before we went a market trial, are the words people use, from the UK, and then if that proved sufficient, then we would send people out there. You have to do that. I was lucky because there are 3 founders to my business, and one of them spent an early part of his career in Northern Virginia working for a company called MicroStrategy. So Giles was perfectly happy to take him and his wife and 4 kids to the US. I remind him that I pay for everything, including the clothes he wears. We didn't spend very much money, but we did pick up a client very rapidly. With the name Verizon. I think it's the largest telco in the world, and that's the first check we got from this week. So you do your homework, you put the right people in place, and actually it can work reasonably well. The other thing, I don't think any of my advisors are here, the other thing about UK tech firms that are new entrants into the US market and are successful, you get really cracking deals from advisors, actually. So we work with some of the most famous names in San Francisco, actually, for buttons. I won't tell you the names, but they're very eager to be supportive. So there's lots of negotiation you can do. That's it, the good, bad and the ugly.
I'll give you my background first before I talk a bit about Zappi and about our international journey. So I graduated, then bummed around the world for a year, got a taste for travel, came back to London, worked for a year in London, and then hated it, and left and worked in Asia. And I worked in Asia for 6 years. So I lived in Hong Kong for 4 years, then Jakarta for 4 years, then moved to New York and was in New York for 6 years. All of it in market research. I've been in market research. Zappi is a market research tech company. So my background is very international. So I'd always worked in international businesses. My clients were all international. To be honest, with market research, it's a bit like advertising. Almost all of the money is spent by massive global companies. You know, it's Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Samsung, all of those types of institutions. And they tend to be interested in buying global projects. So they will buy local projects, but it tends to be the big global contracts. We do work, and I've always worked with people like Verizon, but even they tend to, or BT, tend to have some form of international mindset. So I then moved back to the UK. I've started 4 different companies, all in the market research space. And with all of them, we've gone international. Several of them have been very small. The first one was a technology-enabled company. It was all around text. This was in the early, mid-2000s. And that was the biggest mistake we made. So what we created was a survey research company where you could do texts back and forth and get people seeing advertising or marketing in real time. We thought it was wonderful. Actually, as a system for understanding marketing activity, it was really good. We decided that we were ready to scale. I think we'd grown to, there was at least 4 of us at the time. And we thought, given our interest from people like Unilever, etc., that we needed to expand internationally. The technology worked a bit, not a lot. Which is why we had 2 of the people in the company were basically mechanical Turks, just fixing things. And despite that, we decided to move into Singapore. So we opened an office in Singapore, found some good partners there, hired 3 people on the back of some investment, and kept the office open for about 1.5 years, lost a bucket load of money and made no clients. Actually, we had 2 or 3 clients, but we lost money on all of those projects. So that was a disaster. And the lesson I think I learned from that is, whilst the desire to expand and go international is absolutely core to me, you need to make sure that you're at a point where you can scale. Can scale and can service. And actually, Asia is a tough market to manage from here, particularly when you're small. So, long story short, I opened Zappi about 5 years ago, worked on it for a couple of years. Zappi is an automation business. So we automate the process of doing surveys, particularly sort of expert-led surveys, so not a survey monkey, but a sort of full service market research, but fully end-to-end automated. By the way, I don't have a phone, so I'm not checking time. Can someone give me a nod when I start getting boring? And right from the beginning, I wanted to, I knew it was an international opportunity. Any company would want to do it. And I also knew that by far the biggest market was the US. Previous companies, we'd opened the US by sending a founder over. And I was a devotee of that, but didn't actually want to go back to the US. And I found a guy in the States, young guy, was in his late 20s, and got him to start as a salesperson. I also, both my businesses before had been in New York. I really wanted to be in New York. I've got a load of friends in New York, and I lived in New York, and he was in Boston. Tried to persuade him to move, and he wouldn't. So we ended up in Boston. So that was how we got to pick the city that we're based in. And he started out as a junior person. He's now he's our chief revenue officer, so he runs all sales and marketing globally for us. So we've just been incredibly lucky with that person. I would normally probably go with a founder advice. America is just such a big market. We've now got offices in Germany, we've got people in France, we've got people in South Africa, we've got people in Singapore. But almost every time we make a decision now about where to expand next, and mostly when I'm talking about expansion, I'm talking about putting a salesperson, a BDR, plus a customer service person, so sort of a 3-person office. We will make the decision based on, shall we go to Poland, shall we go to Italy, shall we go to Thailand, or shall we go to Northern California? And almost always Northern California will win. Just the size of the markets in the States are big enough, it's just so much easier than starting an office in Japan. You don't have to go through all of the complexity. And so we're very focused on now making international decisions as opposed to regional decisions about where we put salespeople. The only other advice I would have is try and get people, is have almost unlimited travel budgets. So we, without going too much detail with bankers here, but we're relatively self-managed. So we, of course, we're checking expenses all the time, but we have a pretty open expense policy so that we say to anyone, if you need to join a team over here in order to get something done, then just get on a plane and go and visit that team. And so we've got probably 3 or 4 people in this week from our Americas office. We've probably got 2 people in from our Cape Town office, and we do travel a lot internationally. And that's the only way to keep people together, to keep having a sense of it being one company. We also have sales and tech, so it can feel like 2 companies just because of that, and then you add countries to it. And so we get the sales and tech people sitting in the office together and working on problems together as well. So that's probably most of my advice. Any idea on time? Is that sort of about right? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hi everybody, so I'm Nick Waller from Global M. I can't profess to be anywhere quite near the size of the other guys that we've heard from today, but I'm here, I'm growing, I'm in the middle of the international expansion myself. To give you an overview about our organisation and what we're doing, we're an international technology recruitment agency. So we've worked in 29 countries, 4 continents, and to date we've helped 1,000 candidates and 220 clients. But let me start from the beginning, perhaps about myself, my story. I'm still quite a young chap. I'm still looking to push forward in my business and my personal and with the career that I'm looking to do. So I'll start with how I began and how I became entrepreneurial. And really started when I was at school, when I was at university, and how I started to play a lot of sport. For me, this was a real beginner. This was something that I wanted to do. And it actually ended up being that I couldn't play sport, so I wanted and turned up to become an entrepreneur. I saw that a lot of the skills and a lot of the areas I had from sport I could bring into entrepreneurialism. I could bring into the business that I have, and I've certainly tried to do that. It started, as I said, from school when I had my own business. It was a punting company, so I went to school in Cambridge. So I was very much a young chap, enjoyed the life, and we had punts. And if you don't know, guys, what that is, it's in essence a gondolier, and you're punting down the front of the cam and giving tour guides to people across Cambridge. So very much that started my life in commerce. So I was doing a lot of pitching to people, a lot of bringing in people onto the boats and selling to these guys. And I soon realized that it wasn't just bringing people onto the boats, it was about going to the key areas. So going to the bus parks. If we go to the bus parks, you get more people. So quickly enough, I was in the buses. I was pitching to 100 people on the buses, and you soon quickly picked up which buses and what types of nationalities enjoyed what. So for example, we had maybe the Chinese or Japanese would love Harry Potter. So we were very much Harry Potter, and off they came onto the boats, and we quickly began to pick up these certain things. And that brought me on to my next thing in Durham University, where I set up an events company for nightclubs, and something I very much enjoyed and I wanted to bring into my everyday life and into my career. And that then, of course, brought me on to Global M and into recruitment. As I said, I wanted to be an athlete, I wanted to be a sportsman, so I'm very much a failed athlete, as you can probably tell, and why I'm here today. And now I'm here doing recruitment and doing business. So I think for me, business and international expansion is very important. Us as a business, we do recruitment all over the world. It's a very multinational business now. A lot of people require staff. They require them from very specific locations, very specific skill sets. And so we very much focus on technology. Technology is an area that Everybody is growing, everybody's looking to automate. And so we've really tried to find those key areas of where these technologists are. So very much like the 3 speakers before me, we really want to find those areas that are good for us to go into. So we've really tried to look at Europe firstly, and then we're looking further to seas. So we looked at the Middle East, we've looked at Africa a little bit, but the fees are not so good in Africa. And now we've looked at the States. And again, what we're looking at when we look at these different areas is about the competition. Is the competition good? Are we able to go in there? Are we able to make a difference? How do we make a difference? And we've quickly picked up key areas where we can make a difference. Germany is a big one for us, and it's turned out to be a really good growth area. And we don't necessarily have people on the ground. We have one now, but we have a lot of people that speak the language. So in the organisation, we have 20 people, 14 different nationalities that speak around 15 to 16 different languages. So all these guys were able to communicate with our candidates, with our clients, and speak on their level. So that's certainly something that we really want to push forward as an organisation, and I would advise an organisation to do so. Myself, looking forward and looking at things that I always look for when I look at a location, is what are the operations like? Are we able to put people on the ground with a contract? Are we able to put somebody on the ground with the right financial system to ensure that it makes sense for us? We are a service industry, so not necessarily something that can be automated as much as a technology business. So we always look at how we push that forward from a different perspective slightly than you would from a technology area. So this is all growth that I look at, everything that we try and do and push forward as a business. And from us moving forward, saying that we are a service industry, automation is key. And that's something that we really want to grow into, and I think is a very key element for every single business that does want to go internationally, and perhaps is the size of my organisation. So being a small business, you always want to try and increase and decrease inefficiencies. So try and find something that you can increase and perhaps not have as much staff on it as possible. So that's what we're trying to do next phase, grow it and ensure that we can push forward as a business.